People often don't like to think about their death except now and again, or at funerals, or to recognize their mortality. But if you do it at a species-wide level, it's something that is actually an exemplary human-specific trait that you're exhibiting. Think about something that is the loss of not just your life or your family or everyone you see, but everyone like you. And that is, I dedicated it because I think we might not be the last sentients to have this awareness. I'm actually hoping we'll just be the first. But as far as we know, we're the only. And I think this is the part of the moral thrust for the book, is that we're the only ones that have this awareness. That gives us a duty that only we can exercise so far. It was very abstract. It was fiction almost, or in some cases complete fiction of what you hope or think might happen. But it's become much more quantified and much more real, I think, in the past several hundred years, and especially in the past few decades, where we can see, a sense of responsibility at a planetary scale. So when we think about, like, say, terraforming Mars, that would just be the second planet we've engineered at a planetary scale. We're already doing it for this one, just not that well. We have the best chance of any species, and actually the best chance that humanity's ever had. So I think a lot of people fear that we can or will kill ourselves. The last question is, well, how long do you think that humans or our evolutionary derivatives will last? And the answers are shockingly wide-ranging. Some people say, I think we've only got 100 years left. Or some people say billions. Some people say as long as the universe lasts. But I think we've never been better situated to actually last for the long term. We have, even though we've also never been at the greater risk of being able to destroy ourselves, ever since really the first nuclear test, when Tony Orb has a great book about this called The Precipice, where the precipice for humanity is at one point we made technologies that we weren't sure whether or not they would destroy the Earth or the entire universe. So the math was incomplete and there was too much error, but they tested the bomb anyway. But it's an extraordinary place as a species to think we now have something in our hands that may destroy the Earth and possibly a chain reaction that destroys the whole universe. Let's try it anyway as a stage that we're at as a species. But with that power comes an ability to get to other planets, to survive long term. And when you think about the heat death, that's an ad infinitum question. If you keep thinking, well, we survive, we go to the next sun, and then you go to the next sun, eventually the question will be, well, if you just keep doing that forever, at some point the universe either continues to expand or it could collapse back into itself. And that heat death is more likely at this point, where it just keeps expanding, everything gets too far away. But even in that case, I think if we had a fundamental knowledge of physics and space-time that you could try and restructure quite literally the shape of the universe to prevent it, I think we would. I think we would want to survive. I think, unless we had done the math and we think that there's a greater chance that the next universe would form and make more life, maybe we would. And I think there's probably bacterial life out there, just because we found it everywhere we've looked on Earth. It is, and there's halophilic organisms that can survive in extreme salts. There are psychrophiles that in extreme cold. There's basically organisms that can survive in really almost any possible environment. They can adapt and find a way to live. But as far as we know, we're the only sentient ones. And I think this is the Drake equation, or where is everyone? Is what Enrico Fermi said? Why haven't we heard from anyone if there are these other life forms? I actually think the question is wrong to phrase it that way, because the Earth has only been here for 4.5 billion years. And life maybe only for a few billion of those years, complex life only for several 100 million years of life we've actually had, and humans only the past few million years since our last common ancestor. So it's not that much time. But if you think even further back, the universe hasn't had that much time itself to cool and create atoms and have them spread around the universe, right? So the current estimate's 13.8 billion years of just the whole universe, but it spent the first 5 or 6 of those billion years really just like cooling and making enough of the stars to then make the atoms that would come from supernovas. So I actually think we might be the first, or still one of the very few, or one of the early life forms, but the universe itself hasn't had that much time to make life in a galactic and universal time frame. You needed billions of years for the elements to be created and then distributed. And we're only really in the last few billion years where I think even life could have been made. So I think the question of wherever is everyone is the wrong question. I think we are the first ones at the party. Let's set up the liquor. Let's set up the food. I just think we're the first ones at the party of life, but more people are coming. And then there's a mosh pit, and then you bump into the other galaxy. I think the question should be, when else is everyone getting here instead of where is everyone? I think we've just started on the genesis of life in the universe. Reaching out to other aliens. We've been doing reach out to aliens since the first radio wave's been broadcast, so we're doing some of it. But we've been broadcasting into space for at this point almost a century, getting close to. And So, but it's not been structured. So I think it's very cheap and easy to send out structured messages, like what Carl Sagan wrote about in Contact, doing prime numbers and sending those out to indicate intelligence. So there's things we can do that I think are very cheap and very easy. So we should do some of that. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. This is one of the biggest critiques people often say of space research and even spaceflight in general. It's too expensive. Shouldn't we solve poverty? Shouldn't we cure diseases? And the answer is always, as it always has been, is that you can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can pass the Civil Rights Act and go to the moon in the same decade. You can improve and get rid of structural inequality while getting to the moon and Mars in this decade. So I think we can do both. We'll bring rocks back from Mars in 2033 if all goes according to plan. But there's always a danger of what if you bring this back, and what if it's alive? What if it will kill all of humanity? Or Michael Crichton wrote a book, The Andromeda Strain, about this very idea. And it could, but it hopefully won't. And the only way you can really gauge that is the same way we do with any infectious agent here on Earth, right? If it's a new pathogen, a new organism, you do it slowly, carefully. You often do it with levels of containment. So, and it's going to be probably have to be where some pioneers go, and would be, for example, on Mars. There might be other organisms there that only get activated once there's an ambient temperature and more humidity. Then suddenly the first settlers on Mars are encountering a strange new fungus or something that's not even like a fungus, because it might be a different clade of life, a different branch of life, and could be very dangerous, or it could be very inert. I mean, most of life on Earth is not really dangerous or harmful. Let me go back on this. Most of life on Earth is neither harmful nor beneficial to you. It's just they're making its own way in the universe, just trying to survive. It's when it's inside of you and replicating in your cells and destroying your cells, like a virus, like COVID, SARS-CoV-2, that it becomes a big problem, of course. But it's just doesn't really have agency. It's just trying to get by. And so, for example, most of the bacteria on the table, on your skin, in the subway are pretty inert. They're just people hanging around for the ride. The NASA planning meetings for the Twin study and other missions, that was often the quote that was put up on the wall before we'd sit down for the day to plan the mission. It was that quote, which I
plans are useless,
but planning essential, which I thought was hilarious for an official NASA meeting. Yeah. But it was because you need to have a plan, but you have to know that plan might change. And so I think that's just a quick context for that quote. Craig Kundrot, who's a leader at NASA, is headquarters now. I would always put that first slide up, and I'm like, this meeting's either going to go really well or really bad. I don't know what's about to happen, but it's an inspiring quote because it's very true. That trait, though, of humans, to just sit there and project into the future easily, really seamlessly with whatever you're doing previously, is powerful, because it shows what can change and what should change in some cases, but also that left to its own devices, the universe entropy would come take over, and really things would decay, things would be destroyed. But the only thing really preventing, I think, some of the entropy is really humans, these sort of sentient creatures that are aware of extinction like ourselves. Is really one of the only forces in the universe that's counteracting the second law of thermodynamics, this entropy that's always increasing. Technically, we're actually still increasing it because we emit heat and we never have perfect capture of all of energy, but we're the only things really actively and consciously resisting it. Really, you could say life in general does this. Like ants do this when they build their big homes. They're rearranging the universe to make a nice place for themselves, and they're counteracting entropy. But we could actually do it in a way that would be at a large scale and for long term.